Welcome back to Mind Over Matter with your host Anya. Today, we are exploring a question that has fascinated psychologists, philosophers, and spiritual for centuries. What makes a person mentally strong? Our guest today is Amita Ghosh, a psychology expert who bridges Eastern spirituality with Western psychology. She'll help us understand how mental toughness is not just about discipline, but about balance, mindset, and inner wisdom. If you ever wondered why people thrive under pressure while others crumble, this episode is for you. So let's jump in. So, when people
I
think about, Mhm,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
right. So, when people think about mental toughness, they often think of grit and resilience. But from a psychological and spiritual perspective, what does it really mean to be mentally strong?
Uh, so mental strength is about being able to withstand the ups and downs of life. What what we know is that there is going to be things. One of the things that we know for sure is that the only thing we can count on in life is that things are going to change. And so our ability to stay open to that idea of change allows us to flow with life and take what comes and kind of sail on the rocky or the, rough waters, so to speak, and not get pulled down. So mental strength is about the ability to withstand the pressures of life without breaking. And, how does that happen? What makes one person stronger and the other person not? So Anya, you can stop me anytime you want to, because otherwise I'll just keep talking.
No, it's okay. Please go on.
Okay. So you know, what makes one person stronger compared to the other? In my opinion, it has something to do with your faith. And by faith, it doesn't necessarily have to be religion, but it's just believing in something that is larger than yourself, something that is bigger than yourself, something that has more to do with uh, the larger good of society, the larger good of your family. So, not just focusing narrowly on you, yourself, your needs. Um, One of the things that research has shown is that people who have faith in something that's larger than them usually are happier than people who don't. And, in our everyday world, that tends to end up being religion. It is either going to the temple or it's going to the mosque or it's going to the church. So people who are more religiously connected tend to be happier and more resilient. That doesn't mean that you have to be following a religion. You can also think of it as believing in a higher power. You can think of it as believing in the universe, believing in everybody's, wellness. So taking the attention away from the individual, which is yourself, and putting it on the larger group does help to make somebody stronger. And as far as the Eastern and Western side is concerned, what we know is that typically the Eastern philosophy is more inclusive and collective, as opposed to the Western philosophy, which is more individualistic. So that is where I think one of the perspectives I bring, combine the East and the West together, is that I bring that collective mentality from the East and I help people who are, I'm in the US. So, my clients are all Americans mostly. And So I bring that perspective, the Eastern perspective, back into the Western psychological mindset.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how does spirituality help in building mental resilience?
So, like I was saying, spirituality can be, for some people, spirituality is religion. For some people, spirituality could be nature. For some people, spirituality could be community. So, spirituality comes from the idea of I am not alone. I am part of a larger whole. And so, in that sense, when people bring that kind of mental perspective into their mindset, it helps them kind of ride the uncertainties and the difficulties of life much better. It could be that you believe in prayers. It could be that you believe in spending time in nature. It could be that you believe in uh, meditation. So it can come in a lot of different forms. It doesn't have to be religion, but as long as you're connected to something that is larger than you, that to me is what spirituality is about. And so when people who have a sense of spirituality, who have a sense of that connection to the larger, tend to do much better when it comes to mental health and resilience and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's such an important distinction. Like, mental strength isn't just about suppressing emotions, it's about harnessing them.
Yes, absolutely. Suppressing emotion never really works because at some point, most people tend to have an outburst. If they just keep suppressing, keep suppressing, keep suppressing, it's going to find a way to overflow. So it's about recognizing what's going on with yourself and then dealing with it in the most appropriate way possible. So,
Mhm.
in Vedantic philosophy and in yogic philosophy, we talk about the seer. The seer is the observer. It's that part of ourselves that is observing what's going on. So when we are able to enhance the ability of the seer, and we do that through meditation, we do that through different yogic practices. When we are able to enhance the ability of the seer to observe what's going on in your mind, then you give yourself the time and the space to make a decision about how you want to respond in any given situation, in any given emotional state. So if you suddenly find that your mind is saying that you're being treated unfairly at work, that your coworker is getting all the credit for the hard work you did, and you are now very, very angry. And if you have the seer perspective, then you have the ability to observe what's going on in your mind and then make a good decision about how to respond. Whereas if you don't have the ability of the seer, if you don't work on developing that side of yourself, then you are more likely to react. And we know that when we react in an emotional manner, we are not always being very wise and doing the right thing for ourselves or for anybody else. So that's one of the ways that I believe we can enhance our ability to deal with our emotions, because emotions are going to be there and emotions are good. Emotions are good things that tell us what's going on with us, that tell us whether what's going on is good or bad, or whether we need to get out of a situation or we need to do something differently. So emotion itself are not bad. Oftentimes people say anger is bad. Anger is not bad. Anger is just something, it's an emotion that is telling us that things are not going the way we want them to. Now, what we do with anger is our responsibility. Most people don't use anger in the appropriate way. They tend to react as opposed to respond. Reacting is where you just don't, you're angry, so scream, yell, shout, punch a wall, or whatever. But if you had the ability to have the seer observe what's going on and make a more rational decision about it, you might actually be much better off because it might cause less conflict in the relationship that you're in. And that could be any relationship, work relationship, romantic relationship, family relationship, it doesn't matter. But having the ability to have that little bit of distance from your emotion allows you to make a good decision and a good response. So, the difference between the response and the reaction is very important to note. Reaction is automatic and it's based on our past experiences, on the filter in our mind, and, our fears and apprehensions and those kind of things. However, response is where you look at the situation and then you say, okay, how do I want to deal with this? How do I want to respond to this? And is that going to be in my best interest? Is that going to be in everybody else's best interest? So, developing the ability to have that distance, to have that awareness is very important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, what are some simple daily habits people can practice to strengthen their mental resilience?
So, in order to strengthen your mental resilience, there are a few things that I recommend to my clients. One is to really keep an eye on your expectations because we all have expectations. We are human beings, we will have expectations. But it is when our expectations are not met that we become upset and we, tend to react in negative ways. So if you have a good sense of what are my expectations and are they realistic, are they not realistic, so have expectations that don't lead you down a path of disappointment. That's one thing. The next thing is understand that you don't have any control over other people. You cannot control other people. Other people will say and do whatever they want to say and do. No amount of you trying to convince somebody to be a certain way ever really works out. So, keeping in mind that I don't have control over other people. And then the third is I have control over myself. I have control over how I react. You may not be able to control the situation or other people in the situation, but you have control over yourself. So work with yourself and do what is in your best interest, not just in your selfish best interest, but in the interest of everything, benefit for all. The other thing with resilience is that you want to accept that things will change. That's the only thing that's constant in life is that things will change. They will never stay the same. So, as much as we might enjoy a positive situation in our life, at some point it's going to change. It's going to become negative. If we are struggling with a negative situation, you have to remind yourself that things will change and they will become better. So, reminding yourself that life is about change and accepting that is the fourth thing that I would recommend that people do. And the final thing I would say that is really important is practicing even just 5 minutes of mindfulness. Just taking a breath in and just calming your mind, noticing what's going through your mind. So oftentimes, people think that mindfulness or meditation is about blanking your mind. And at some level, like really, really expert meditators may be able to do that. But for the most of us, it's not about blanking your mind. It's about just being able to observe what's going on in your mind. And that's where the seer that I was talking about earlier, you're strengthening the ability to see without reacting. see and observe, see and learn. So learning to calm yourself and being present in the present moment and noticing what's running through your mind is very important. So I would say that is one of the final things that I would recommend, that everybody does, like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, just maybe focusing on your breath, focusing on a sound, focusing on what's running through your mind without getting hooked by the thoughts, and doing that every day.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, how can someone tell the difference between pushing through discomfort versus ignoring their own limits?
Uh, Limits. That's a very good question. Very good question. Um, I think that it's a balance. It's a very fine balance, because if you don't push yourself through your discomfort, then you're not going to grow. However, being unrealistic about your abilities and skills can lead to a lot of disappointments, in your life. So I think having a good idea of where you are at in your life currently, and that could be in your work situation with, what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, what your skill levels are, really being realistic and honest with yourself about that. Because I think that there are some people who underestimate their abilities, and then there are some people who overestimate their abilities. So neither of those are good. If you underestimate your ability, then you're never going to push yourself to do better and grow. If you overestimate yourself, then either you're going to face a lot of disappointment and failures, or you are kind of living in a make believe world. So, having a realistic idea of where you're at in your life is very important. And you can gain that knowledge by talking to people you trust. And if we are talking about work skills, then maybe looking at um, assessing your work skills from the point of what projects have I done, how well did I do in those projects. If you are a student, then you can look at your test scores and say, okay, how did I do? And did I put 100% effort into it, or was I, lazy and didn't really put a lot of work into it? So being very honest and realistic, and being honest with ourselves is not easy. So sometimes we need help. We need help from people that we trust and people who know us well, and ask them, what do you think my ability is? Do you think I'm capable of doing this? Do you think that if I got some training, I could do better? So really talking with people who you know and trust, and then looking at objective measures of your, past experiences, your past results of how you've done. And then starting from that place and saying, okay, I want to get better, so I'm going to push myself, or I cannot get any better than this. This is my limit. And there's no amount of pushing that's going to do any good. So, both of those things are important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's so valuable. It's a fine line between growth and burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because growth is very important. I always say that I'm going to stop growing the day I die, because I I just absolutely value and love growth and development. Um, and I encourage that in everybody I work with, that people should keep growing all their lives. Um, but at the same time, if you are pushing yourself in an area where you are limited, really realistically limited, then you're going to reach burnout. You're going to feel like, I'm doing all this work and it's not showing any results. So it's very, very important to know what your true capacity and capabilities are.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, can you share a personal story or example of someone who demonstrated exceptional mental strength in the face of adversity?
Oh, yes, there's so many. I mean, I've been doing this work for over 30 years, so I've seen a lot of different clients. And I'm not going to think of just one person, but I'm going to talk about a general group of people that I'm, looking at different aspects of their life and their experiences and bringing it together. I've worked with men, women, adult children, all of that. But I have one client who uh, kind of got married, and no, let me start before. So this client had a lot of health issues from childhood. She had multiple surgeries as a child. She was in the hospital for months and months and months, and missed out on school, missed out on making friends at school, didn't really have the same experience of growing up as most people do because of all the health, problems that she had. And as an adult, she adopted a child as a single woman, and adopting a child in the US is not cheap because it costs a lot of money. And so she adopted a child, and she was raising this child when she met somebody and married this person. And for the first few years, the marriage was good. But then after that, this her husband was abusing her, and physically, mentally, verbally, sexually was abusing her. And she eventually found the strength to leave him. And he didn't allow her to work outside the home, so she had no money, nothing. But she was able to leave him and divorce him. And now she is living a much happier life, rediscovering herself, connected to all her friends, and she's so much happier. So I think that that to me is a huge sort of example of resilience at not just in as an adult but as a child. So growing up with difficulties, she was able to do it, and she did it even as an adult. So and that's just, one example. There are so many more people that I've worked with who have shown such resilience and strength in the face of challenges in life.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So, what key traits or practices help them navigate through their challenges?
I would say definitely a belief that some things can be better, not giving up hope, that is, not giving up hope, believing in themselves, believing that they themselves will survive and will do okay. They will be fine. That because abusers typically will make you think that you're going to be nothing without them. So, not believing that, instead, believing that you're going to be okay, you're strong enough, you're capable enough, that you will be fine. That's very important. So, hope, belief in yourself, reaching out for help, knowing when and who to reach out to for help. Because none of us are going to do this by ourselves. We all need help. So having people in your life that will help you is very, very important. So that connection is very important. And then, just taking the first step towards what is healthy and what makes you happy, what makes you feel good about yourself and your life. So just taking that next step, courage to take that next step.
Mm-hmm. That's such a valuable perspective. This conversation was eye opening. Amita, thank you so much for helping us understand the true essence of mental strength.
Thank you so much, Anya.
Mhm. And to our listeners, if you're ready to start building real resilience, try implementing one small habit we discussed today. And if this episode inspired you, share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, stay strong, stay mindful, and trust yourself.